Welcome to Paradise in the Pines. A new day is dawning at the Sunrise Theater in downtown Southern Pines. We have the new executive director, Tim Russell, with us. Coming up next. Welcome to Paradise in the Pines, a podcast about the people, places, and stories that make this the home of American golf. Brought to you by the Pinehurst Southern Pines Aberdeen Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. Tim Russell, Executive Director of the Sunrise Theater. First of all, welcome. I guess maybe welcome again to town because you've been here like 10 years, but welcome to the Sunrise Theater.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm so excited to be here. It's the dream come true.
Yeah, talk about, I just mentioned you've been here for 10 years. So what brought you originally to the Southern Pines area?
Oh, well, it's kind of funny. My wife and I were living on a horse farm down in Naples, Florida, or Fort Myers area, and we were looking for a place to go for a short vacation, and someone said, "Oh, you should come up to Southern Pines. It's a really cute, equestrian-friendly town."
Yeah.
And so we did. We came up for a long weekend, and Saturday morning we walked around town. We had breakfast at Betsy's Crepes and went, "This is really great." And then we walked into Casino Guitars, and I'm a musician. And I was like, "Oh, this is awesome."
Isn't it?
And then we had dinner at Ashton's, and by Sunday morning it was like, well, let's look for property.
Yeah, there you go. It happens often.
Yep. And 3 months later, we were Moore County residents, and have never looked back. It's our new adopted home, and absolutely love it.
Now, we'll get into your background a little bit later, but I want to talk about your appointment at the Sunrise Theater. Talk about the opportunity, what you envision there. How'd you hit the ground running?
Well, I've loved the Sunrise Theater from the very first moment we got here. Even though I was in sort of the corporate space, I've always had this side life as a musician and as an arts enthusiast. And one of the first things we ever saw when we came to the area was Good Shot Judy, the jazz band. And I'll never forget sitting in the audience looking around going, this place is so cool. And so I've had a love affair with the Sunrise really ever since the first day we got here. And I've followed it as a patron and then later as a volunteer at the theater. So I kind of knew, where some of the opportunities were. And when the opportunity arose for a new executive director, the timing was perfect because I had kind of recently semi-retired from my corporate life.
Yeah.
And it was my wife who said, "Oh, you would be perfect in this role." And that was really the first step to kind of where I am today. But
I've been here about 7 years, and so I've always seen the Sunrise Theater as a place to go see a movie. You've got First Fridays, you've got the theater there, other events that go on. In your time that you've been here, you mentioned opportunities. Aside from what I just mentioned, what were the opportunities that you saw? Hey, man, we could really take advantage of some things here, and this is how the Sunrise Theater could be a part of that.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people either thought of the Sunrise Theater as either the venue for First Fridays or a movie theater.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly in the wake of COVID and a changing movie landscape, there was an opportunity to do so much more, and it timed a lot very nicely with, I think, the changing demographics of the area, where you had a lot more arts enthusiasts that have come in that wanted different kinds of programming. So, yeah, even just in the short time I've been here, we've experimented with all kinds of different programming, whether it's comedy, art on screen, more experiential cinema, music-related events, and it's been really phenomenally successful. So it's been a super fun process just in the past 4 months to kind of learn, what does this area want? What do they want to come see and expand their horizons? And so it's a great position to be in, to kind of have some fun and play with different things and see what resonates with the community.
I know you would send out a survey, which is a wise thing to do. Just assess, hey, where are we at? What are people? How are they going to react to this? What were some of the findings from that? And were there some surprises, or what kind of resonated? Like, hey, we knew that, but we didn't know about this.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing that really surprised me about it was that when we first set out to do it, and it was one of the first things I wanted to do because, really, this is the community's theater, and I wanted to understand what did our community want to see out there. And I'd set a goal for 1,000 responses. And we gave away a free movie ticket. If you completed the survey, you'd get a ticket as kind of an incentive, because that would really drive what we did.
Right.
And I thought, oh, well, are we really going to be able to get 1,000 people to do this? Because that's a really statistically significant number. And we hit about 800 in about 3 days.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And that's just continued to grow. And in many ways, there are some things that were not surprising in terms of the demographic makeup of the area. In other ways, it was absolutely surprising in that people wanted things that either the Sunrise or the theater or the arts community hadn't done before, or they wanted more of certain things. So it was a really great opportunity to be able to dive in and experiment. The biggest piece of that was experiences. You know, what's going to get people either out of their homes or out of their hotel room to come out and try something they can't get at home? Now, everyone has a giant screen TV in their house these
Right.
days, and you can watch Conclave or whatever. But, you know, to be able to see an art exhibition on screen, or to be able to see a music concert, or, you know, the Paris Ballet, things like that. You know, these are all things that people have asked for. And as those demographics have changed in the last 4 to 5 years, the programming that we're doing aligns a lot with that.
Yeah. What are some of the short-term things you want to kind of implement now that you've had a few months under your belt and, you know, start developing your program and getting out of winter now and spring, everybody getting out and about and wanting to experience, like I said, experiences. And we see that in tourism too. You know, it's kind of shifted now where people are more about experiences and not so much about the other things that people used to be attracted to when it comes to travel. Now they want to go and experience new things that are different. What are some of the short-term things that you want to implement right away?
Well, right away, it's I don't want to say changing our programming, because so much of the things that people already love about the Sunrise, whether it's the First Friday or the Metropolitan Opera or even some of the art house cinema, that'll always be there. But to be able to do some really exciting new things. So in the short term, we've launched this new art on screen exhibition series where you can essentially see these art masterpieces on our brand new high definition 8K laser projector. And it's about as good as you can get to seeing these artworks, just short of being at the Musée d'Orsay or the National Gallery, bringing in big name musicians into the area. We've just announced 3 major concerts later this year, and Dwayne Betts, Tommy Prine,
Dickie Betts' son.
Dickie Betts' son,
Yeah.
yep, who's carrying on sort of the Allman Brothers
Yeah,
legacy, and
that's awesome.
another famous son in Tommy Prine, the son of famous John Prine, who's he himself is carrying on his father's musical legacy, and he's coming in. And just today, we're very excited to announce Ben Chapman, who's a big up-and-coming artist, and he's on the cusp of explosion. And we're really, really excited and fortunate to have them adding Southern Pines onto their national tour list. And so that's like a small example of some of the things we're trying to do. Music, in particular, has really stood out as being something that people want in this area, whether it's rock or country or jazz or classical. So you'll see a lot more of that too.
You mentioned music, and we had a chance to meet with you a few weeks ago in preparation for this, and just to meet you, because we had not had a face-to-face conversation since you had joined the Sunrise Theater, and we're in the midst of creating a music video to really showcase this as a burgeoning music destination. And you had mentioned a number, a specific number of musicians that live in this area and people that used to play in rock bands that now reside here. But talk about that, and talk about this destination being a burgeoning music destination, which I think there's something we're hitting on here.
Yeah, absolutely. And in many ways, that's kind of what brought me to the Sunrise, and the opportunity to use the Sunrise as a platform to really further expand on that. And it started with my effort about 7 years ago to create a small Facebook group of local Moore County musicians. And for, I would say, the first 5 years, there were maybe, 10 members in that group. And then in the last 4 years alone, it's exploded to over 1,000 people that are local musicians, the number of venues that have expanded to provide live music, the music scene in Moore County is now tremendous. And in all the people that I've talked to and the establishments that are out there, there's a real opportunity to capitalize on that. And there's enough talent that exists here across all different genres that we have a phenomenal opportunity to have music and art be really a pillar of this community. And so I feel very fortunate in my role at the Sunrise to have that as a platform to kind of really develop that and be a provider for it. So, yes, we're leaning pretty heavily into music because the local market wants that and they support it. But, broader scale, I see this town becoming kind of like a mini Asheville or a mini Nashville in terms of its music scene. We are getting people moving here and coming here to visit for the music scene, which has always existed in different areas. But, whether it was originally bluegrass or Americana, it has really expanded now. You've got some phenomenal jazz musicians out here, everything from rap to even harder metal to pop to kind of classic rock influenced style. There's really now something for everybody out here, not to mention the classical talent that's really being generated and promoted too. So it's an exciting time to be out here.
And you've got a great venue for it too, because there are other places I see people perform at Beehawk or Red's Corner. The Neon Rooster used to be open, and we'd love to see that being used again. But the Sunrise Theater is a perfect venue. I know there was a blues concert there last year. You've got Herb Fest that's going to happen here in the near term. But do you see more like music festival type things where you could utilize the theater and the grounds of the stage, the amphitheater outside there on Broad Street?
Yeah, without a doubt. We've always done First Fridays. We're in our 19th year now, First Fridays, and the Herb Cameron Music Festival, which is coming up next weekend, which is really exciting, with the biggest lineup we've ever had. We're definitely leaning into that because we have this phenomenal outdoor stage, the First Bank stage at the Sunrise, and inside at the auditorium, I didn't know this before, but when the theater was renovated in the mid-'90s, it was done to become as acoustically perfect as possible. And so when I talk with musicians that have played inside there, they talk about how much they love actually playing at the Sunrise because the acoustics are so good, and they love playing it because of its intimacy. And here's a little tip when I found this out. The front row of the balcony is acoustically the most perfect place to sit for any live music venues. So
keep that in mind, folks.
Keep that in mind. But absolutely, we'll be doing a lot more of that going forward.
That's awesome. Talk about the art scene, and we talk about the music scene here, but you've got the arts are so much a big part of this community. Everybody talks about we are the home of American golf, but I mean the art scene. I think people that are not part of that or don't follow it would be shocked to understand that we've got Bradshaw Performing Arts Center, Weymouth Center, Arts Council Moore County, the Sunrise Theater. Talk about this community. You've been here for 10 years. How rich it is in the arts and the people that come here. I mean, the people that perform at Bradshaw, they're from Broadway and a number of other people that visit this area that I think people that don't follow the arts may be surprised by.
You'd be amazed, actually. And it always did exist to a degree, but when I first got here 10 years ago, there were not that many venues. There were not many performances. And now you look at this 10 years later, and like you said, all these different performance venues that have now come about, whether it's BPAC, Beehawk, Red's Corner, the live music bar scene, Weymouth Center, the Sunrise that's done a lot more. There's so much going on, you can't even keep up with it. And that's such a great thing for this whole town. And in being in my position, I get to meet people and talk to people as they leave, and they tell me what they want, and they love it. Everything from Broadway music that we do at the theater or that BPAC does out there. We've got residents that, they're from New York or they're from some of the major areas that move here, and they miss that. They want that. And that's probably the most common thing I hear from people, where it's like, we moved here and we're so happy that this exists for us to engage in. And so it's a great position to be in.
as we record this on March 26th, and this will appear in early April, we're getting ready, as we tape this tomorrow, to meet with Ray Williams. Ray Williams actually discovered Elton John decades ago. He is part of an organization that wants to do a regional music festival, which will include Moore County, Chatham County, and Lee County. And I had no idea before Governor Cooper had stepped aside, had formed the state music office. So they approached us and Economic Development, Natalie Hawkins with Moore County Economic Development Partnership. So we're going to do a little venue tour as we record this tomorrow for Moore County, which will include the Sunrise Theater. So talk about that opportunity to bring in even more names, and that they selected this 3-county area in the state to start this regional music festival if we can get it off the ground.
Yeah, it's really sort of serendipitous that this is happening, because it does coincide with efforts that I've made and that I've made in partnership with the Arts Council and the Southern Pines Land and Housing Trust and the Weymouth Center to all come together to help promote and develop this area as both a music and an arts and a cultural destination, more so than it has been. Really with a broader goal of having arts and culture being another major economic pillar of the region.
Yeah.
So to see that the state has already identified that as a real opportunity is so exciting, because that means there's a groundswell of support for this initiative. And so if they if they're interested in developing that, we'll be really excited to be one of their top partners in that, because we've got a great venue to do it.
We're excited for that for sure. I know you had mentioned the acoustics in the Sunrise Theater and how acoustically sound it is, and musicians appreciate that. And you talked about some of the short range goals. What are some of the things like improvements or long range goals, either infrastructure or pie in the sky, big thinking type of things that you want to do there as we move into years 1 and 2?
Yeah, well, this is, I think, really critically important. The Sunrise Theater in particular, it's an anchor to the town, and it's an icon of the town, and it always has been, sitting right across from the train station. But it's showing its age, and I think that we are at the area. No, I don't think we are at the point in time where this community now, the demographics and the economy being what it is, that the Sunrise should be this bright, gleaming, shining jewel icon, not just of Southern Pines, but really of Moore County. And when I talk about it being an icon, that is what I envision it to be. When people think of Moore County, it's the Sunrise marquee and everything that embodies. So, this is ambitious, and it's not going to happen today or tomorrow, but a much bigger and broader plan to really improve it both on the outside and on the inside to make it into a 21st century venue. But very importantly, retaining its original historic character, because it is so important with its history and the emotional connection that people have to the history. So how do we best do that? That's a big task I have in front of me, but a lot of support behind that too.
And you have a board. Talk about the structure of the organization and who maybe you report to or who helps you, who you can consider confidants in your efforts to try to make things happen at the Sunrise.
Yeah, the Sunrise Theater, it's a nonprofit entity, and its governance is the Sunrise Preservation Group by a board of directors, of course, of volunteers, and it's a phenomenal board. It's people that love and are so passionate about the theater. Everyone on there exists to work to support the Sunrise Theater. Everyone is involved on a day-to-day basis, whether it's in the finances, the programming, the marketing, the building and the facilities itself, and pillars of the community that all have this shared goal of exactly what I'm talking about here, preserving this beautiful, beautiful entity that means so much to so many people. So what's exciting for me is to see this board as excited as they are about the opportunities and the direction that the theater has in the coming 5 to 10 years, and hopefully beyond that. So we get together for these board meetings, and it's everyone's got smiles on their faces, and that's such a great thing to be a part of.
I can attest that having a very good board is a very good thing, and keeping them happy is good. But when they share your enthusiasm and spirit for visions and goals, it means a lot. If people want to volunteer, what should they do if they want to come and assist volunteer wise at the Sunrise Theater?
Yeah, as a nonprofit entity, we really do thrive and survive off the effort of the volunteers that work there, and there's so much to do and that could be done at the theater, whether it's helping us put on programming, to supporting the First Friday and the Herb Friday events, helping us with marketing. So we have a volunteer coordinator. Her name is Lee Bozich, and we have right now a network of about 130 people that she manages that voluntarily sign up to help, doing something as simple as anything from selling tickets to cleaning the theater after a performance to doing security at the First Friday events.
Dan's a big guy behind the mic there. He can muscle.
I'm gonna sign you up for green room security. Keep all the fans at bay out there. But,
Dan, you're an artist. Dan went to Dan Dryer's our destination storyteller, produces the podcast behind the camera there. Dan, you went to Savannah College of Art and Design.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah. So you have a question for Tim about the arts and what they plan to do there?
Yeah, sure. I'm actually curious about the screenings you're talking about. Are they video presentations of famous artworks from around the world, or are they photograph presentations? You said it was through an 8K projector. It sounded really interesting. Can you describe it in more detail?
Yeah, sure. It's really exciting, and I've seen 4 of them, and they've knocked my socks off. It's hard to describe. It's not exactly a documentary, and it's not exactly an art exhibition, but kind of a combination of the two. And we just finished up the first one of 6 series called The Dawn of Impressionism, Paris 1890. And it's a production done by a company based out of London in partnership with the National Gallery and the Musée d'Orsay, where they pick a famous artist and their most celebrated works. And it's both a little bit part documentary on the artist and the work, but also an in-depth analysis of their masterpieces. And so, leveraging this new projector that we got earlier this year, you can get in and see the color and the texture almost as good as if you were to put your nose up to the Mona Lisa or Van Gogh's Starry Night.
Oh yeah, that's really cool. So like paintings and stuff, it gets right down close to the surface and analyzes the layers of paint and in a little bit more of a technical.
Yep.
That's really cool. Yeah. I look forward to that.
On Thursday of this week, we've got young Picasso, and then the series ends with Michelangelo. And I've seen that where for example, the statue of David, and you see it as if your nose was about 2 inches away from the sculpture. And it just allows you to appreciate the art as good as you could get it without actually having to go and see it in person.
Yeah.
So it's been very, very popular, and we're excited to bring that in. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about Tim Russell. Let's talk about how you got here, what you did before you talked to your musician. So how did you learn to become one? What do you play? Do you still play in town, or what do you do?
Yeah, well, I was a corporate executive for about 30 years, and I was in the education space, and I was the vice president of the international division for what was at that time Pearson Learning. It went on to become Savvis. Yeah. But really throughout my whole corporate career, I always had this separate Walter Mitty alter ego of being a musician, being an arts enthusiast. And, I played in bands throughout my whole life, but in the last 20 years really got more into songwriting and producing. And so, yeah, I've done a lot of writing and composing and either publishing my own stuff or writing music for other people that they perform. And so it's always been a passion. And what's so great about the Sunrise Theater is that now I get to exercise all of my passions. And don't get me wrong, working for a corporation is great. It pays the bills.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, where your contribution to society is increasing shareholder value, it's not very fulfilling.
Right.
But you come to the Sunrise Theater, and whether it's putting on, a live play of Brighton Beach Memoirs or a Good Shot Judy concert, and to see the people as they walk out with smiles on their faces, and they tell me how much they loved that. I mean, that is so immensely rewarding. You can't get that anywhere else. So every day, it's not a job at all. It's a passion for sure. And I'm so fortunate to be in that position to love what I do that way.
Yeah.
So
I understand just in research for this podcast that you lived abroad in your career as an executive. So you lived in a number of countries. What was your favorite location to live abroad?
That's a tough question. Um,
And maybe name some of the places you lived abroad, and then expand on what might have been your favorite.
yeah, I've lived in anywhere from Paris to London, Bangkok, Taipei, Sydney, and Hong Kong. And my longest tenure was in Hong Kong for 4 years, and really, really loved Hong Kong. But had my sort of formative years spent in Taipei, Taiwan, of all places. And at that time, I was a young graduate from college, and I was making my way around Asia with my guitar across my back, playing Simon and Garfunkel songs on the street corner for people to throw out money. And it was such a novelty to see this white Caucasian guy out in the field of Chinese people. But yeah.
I lived in China for 6 months as a golf instructor. I lived in Shenzhen, China. And we would go to Hong Kong once a month. This is before the takeover, and this is 2009. And I worked for a golf instructor, Cindy Reed. She's 6'2" blonde. Oh. So we would go into a Walmart in Shenzhen, and whole families would follow her. And I would go to Hong Kong maybe once a month because I banked with
HKBS or
it was an English based bank, HSBC. I think it was.
Yeah, right.
And so somebody told me something about Hong Kong that really hit home. In fact, I mentioned in the office yesterday. Hong Kong is half the size of Manhattan with twice as many people.
Yeah.
Just think about that, how big Manhattan is, and just squash that down to half because all the buildings go straight up. But it's fun to walk through the markets and just see that culture is just, obviously pretty cool to see as an American being there. And they all thought we knew Tiger. They all thought we played on the PGA Tour, which is completely erroneous. But again, living abroad is a great opportunity. So having lived in those amazing metropolitan areas, iconic major areas around the world, to live here in Southern Pines, and you've been here 10 years, what is it about this area that you fell in love with it as a visitor, that it happens every day? And in tourism, I told you before we started this podcast, we get people to come here, spend all their money, go home, and then book their trip to come back, but not move here.
Yeah.
But what compels people at the end of the day, after all those travels, to go, you know what, this is where we're going to stay forever?
It's such a great question because you're absolutely right. I was living kind of this jet setter international lifestyle and in these really exotic places, and I was worried. I said to my wife before we moved here, is this going to be too slow? Are we going to be missing out on the arts and culture that we love and everything? And so it was a bit of a leap of faith, but really, I love telling the story about how in the first week we were here, we went to the Sunrise and saw Good Shot Judy, which, if you haven't seen Good Shot Judy, this phenomenal jazz band, and it was just like, this is phenomenal. It's got everything you could want in this town. It's got the equestrian scene. It's got the arts and the culture, but it's also got the serenity and the charm. So there's something for everybody here, and we didn't even know that until after we had lived here for a while to recognize it. But such a wonderful surprise.
And I always ask this of our guests, especially if they've lived here, even if they just visited here. And you mentioned Betsy's Crepes, you mentioned Ashton. So what would be like maybe your three, like if somebody came to this destination, they're going, hey, where's a really cool place to eat that might be local? Obviously, we don't have many chains. We don't want chains. I know we got a Target, we got a BJ's wholesale. That is what it is, but we love our local, keep it local. What would you recommend to somebody that maybe had never been here, aside from those two places that you experienced when you were first here? What were some real cool places you'd like to go with your wife and enjoy a nice meal?
Well, Betsy's Crepes and Ashton's will always have a very special place in our heart out here. That will never go out of style. Our two favorite places in town. But ever since sort of coming to the Sunrise and working there, and now actually working downtown and getting a chance to try everything else, I think the ice cream shop has become my new favorite place for
great hot dogs.
Great hot dogs, great tuna melt, and phenomenal ice cream. And I'd never really been there prior to that, but now it's at least a once in a week, if not a twice a week place. And
the gentleman who owns it plays in a band called Ice Cream for Breakfast, which Katie Wyatt, the executive director of Weymouth, performs in as well. Yeah. So, and actually is part of Herbfest.
He's coming to play, or their band is coming to play, at Herbfest. They're number 3 in the lineup, so we're really excited. They're a phenomenal group. And they got their name, of course, because they got together early in the morning at the ice cream shop just to jam and have fun. And it evolved from that. So, hey, ice cream for breakfast.
No, hey,
Why not?
I've done it before. It's not bad. I'll tell you what, speaking of ice cream, Handel's, I haven't been to Handel's ice cream. I'm not here to do a plug for them. We don't get paid for them at all. But I did try some of their ice cream. One of it's called coconut something, but it tastes like the Samoa ice cream, so like the Girl Scout cookies.
Oh, yeah.
You close your eyes, it tastes exactly like Dan's like foaming at the mouth here because he wants to go get some ice cream. I think we're going to get some ice cream after this podcast. But last question before we let you go. I know we're getting ready and get into the spring here, and First Friday is going to be ongoing for the next few months. I think everybody's used to what goes on there. It's a street party and street fair and entertainment. Any surprises, anything we should be looking for in this year's series for First Friday?
Well, this Friday, we've got some amazing bands coming. Jay and the Causeways, Neighbor, the Jonathan Robinson Trio are the three of the confirmed that we've got coming up, and three more to be finalized this week. So definitely keep an eye on our social media and on our website, because we're announcing new stuff literally every week. Just in the past month alone, we've had the big Dwayne Betts announcement, the Tommy Prine announcement. Today is going to be Ben Chapman, and next week, I can give you a little sneak peek. We're launching a really exciting new series called the Classic Concert Series, and it's a co-production between Casino Guitars and Sunrise Theater, where once a month we're going to show an epic concert from music history. So think, Taylor Swift Eras Tour or Queen live at Wembley Stadium in 1986. With the acoustics being what they are in the auditorium and these mammoth speakers, we tweak it for concert audio. So you can sit in there and it seems like you're literally in this concert, which is so exciting.
It's our version of the Sphere.
Yeah, exactly right. And on April 24, we're kicking that series off.
Wow,
with,
very cool.
The film Pink Floyd Live in Pompeii.
Oh man, you sold me.
Yep.
As soon as you said Pink Floyd, you sold me.
It's only 2 performances, but they've released it. They've remastered the whole thing in new audio. They're allowing 2 performances, and then they put it back in the vault. So April 24, come on down, and that kicks off our Classic Concert Series.
Awesome. Well, great way to cap it off. Tim Russell, new executive director of Sunrise. So wish you the best of luck with everything there. You've got some great ideas. We're excited about this being a music destination and so much more, and so much with the arts, and appreciate you kind of expanding on how important the arts are to Moore County, because it truly is, and it truly is to tourism for sure. Certainly appreciate you taking time to be at Paradise in the Pines.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, if you want to learn more about tourism, go to our website. It's homeofgolf.com. If you want to look at our videos, go to our YouTube channel, which is Home of American Golf. If you like this podcast, tell your friends about it, download it. It's called Paradise in the Pines. We'll see you next time.